11 win streak, snapped. 22 win streak, snapped. And 18 win streak, snapped. Islam Makhachev just got his 16th win in a row, tying Anderson Silva for the most in UFC history, and also became a 2-division world champion. He's one of the GOATs, and Islam was in perfect shape for welterweight. The added muscle did not gas him out, even though he was noticeably bigger. Him and JDM looked roughly the same size in there. But did you guys notice that JDM's demeanor was changing throughout the fight, like he was switching moods? After some of the rounds, for the first and second, he looked quite confident. And then in the third and fourth, he looked like he was concerned. A very different facial expression. And then for the fifth, it looked like he was crying, dude. A completely different facial expression, knowing that he was down 4 rounds. And his leg was absolutely cooked, and he was getting dominated the whole time. Didn't have much success in the stand-up either. Had like one moment of a clinch flurry, and that was pretty much it. He was reaching with his punches, overextending. His jab wasn't effective. Like nothing he was throwing in the stand-up besides that one flurry was working for him. He was getting outstruck by a leg kick. A simple leg kick was enough to make a drastic difference throughout the fight. He landed 10 leg kicks throughout the fight. 10 leg kicks. Debilitated JDM. This was one of the most simplistic game plans I've ever seen from Islam. Just spam the leg kick and shoot a double or single. And when the fight goes to the ground, just engulf him with the usual techniques. Now he was using some feints and faking the jab to set up his takedowns, but there were even some examples where he didn't need a feint, and they still worked perfectly. It's so crazy to say that his ascension to the welterweight division, fighting the defending champion in his prime, was one of the easiest fights of his entire career. Well, Islam is just truly a special fighter. And there's a lot of criticism that Islam Makhachev just put on a very dull performance and essentially was just sitting on top in half guard the whole time. Now, I could understand why some people would say that this fight was boring, but I would not just blame Islam for that, because he went for submissions, multiple of them throughout the fight, and JDM just defended them. If JDM had the submission defense of, Dustin Poirier or Dan Hooker, he would have been submitted within the first 2 rounds, because Islam actually attempted the same submissions that defeated both of those guys. And Charles Oliveira as well. He went for an arm triangle too, and JDM defended that. Now, Charles of course got rocked before, which nerfed his ability to defend. But he went for the same submission. He went for the arm triangle. He went for the headlock into a Darce choke combo that he got on Dustin Poirier. He went for a Kimura that he submitted Dan Hooker with, but too close to the fence for it to be effective. JDM was just able to sit up against the fence and completely dispel it. So it's reasonable to say that the fight was boring, but it's not just because of Islam. Islam went for submissions, and JDM was good enough to defend them. Like, optically, it looks like, with Islam on top, and he's the one who's dominating the fight, that he should be able to get the finish. But it's not that easy when the opponent is good enough to defend it. He wasn't adequate enough to defend the takedowns, but that's a whole separate aspect from defending submissions. Solely blaming Islam for being boring is also disregarding JDM's submission defense, because he was good enough to survive. And let's go through how JDM was able to defend these submission attempts. So against the arm triangle, Islam's on the opposite side in half guard, and he wants to pass all the way around onto the same side. But JDM rotated to his shoulder by pushing onto Islam's hip, relieving the choke. And then when Islam tried to get the Darce choke, he attempted the same technique that worked against Dustin. Starting with the headlock, he tries to sneak that bottom arm across the neck, and JDM recognized it immediately and threw both of his arms in between Islam's, eliminating the choke. Islam commits for the setup again, and this time JDM defends it before the Darce choke is ever even attempted. He defends it at the headlock by simply fighting off the hands. 2-on-1 and wrist control, and the submission is completely eliminated. He goes for the Kimura from half guard instead of side control, and he was way too close to the fence to snap onto this effectively, and JDM just simply sits up against the fence, completely eliminating it. And in this position, Islam's on top in half guard again, and they both have wrist control on each other's right arms. Islam is pinning JDM to the ground, while JDM is trying to obstruct Islam from using his right hand to secure any type of submission attempt. And Islam simply breaks the wrist control by pulling his arm away and then swinging it across full force, almost like a hook, to attack the Kimura or a straight armbar. But JDM held his arm in the opposite position, buying enough time to lean to his right side, using that right knee to break Islam's grip. Or on this submission attempt, JDM was trying his hardest, putting his greatest effort to get up from the bottom. He was pushing away at one of the legs, and Islam countered it with a Darce choke. This was the closest one because he actually had it snapped on around the neck, but JDM was quick enough to escape Islam's hooking of the leg. He rotates and flips, defending the choke once again. So as you can see, Islam was going for submissions at times, not the entire fight, but he at least attempted multiple of them, but JDM just defended them, which he wasn't successful with against the takedowns. He made easy work of Jack Della Maddalena, outstruck him, outgrappled him with a pretty simple game plan. I mean, he took advantage of the boxer's weakness, and that is the leg kick. He wasn't checking too many kicks, and JDM was unable to defend the takedowns. Bilal Muhammad was not exaggerating when he said that Islam is on a different level. Every takedown was easy, and Islam secured them in each round, holding top position for about 19 minutes of a 25-minute fight. A complete dominant performance, and even reversed JDM's takedown attempts. Yes, he went for 2 takedowns in the fight, which were ineffective. It might be quite confusing as to why JDM even attempted this, but it is actually consistent with his techniques. He hit this on Gilbert Burns and threw a knee afterward, but he quickly learned that Islam Makhachev is certainly no Gilbert Burns. So he kicks across Islam's hips and tries to throw him over with the right whizzer. Islam was quick to shuffle his feet mid-air, breaks his fall by planting one of his feet, and gripping around JDM's back, scooting into the fence as JDM tried to get out on top, completely reversing the position on JDM. Or here at the end of the 3rd round, JDM is rising into a takedown, trying to establish some kind of attack, understanding perhaps a lack of a risk with 4 seconds left of the round. And Islam is grabbing onto a headlock but shifts his focus onto the whizzer, rotates his body to the side, posts on the ground, and kicks upward from inside of JDM's right leg, elevating him, succeeding in reversing him over, ending on top. Islam was just so far ahead of JDM when it came to grappling, it wasn't even a competition at all. And a few times he was set up with a striking bite, invoking some respect out of JDM from his striking initially. So he would just simply throw a jab, and JDM would cover up and lean his head away, opening up his leg and hips for the takedown, and Islam capitalizes on this. Shoots a single, tries to raise up the leg, but because it's in between both of his, JDM was able to extend it, causing it to obstruct the takedown that Islam was focusing on. So Islam just simply steps away with his left leg, repositions inward, succeeding in raising the leg up, and then kicks out the supporting leg while knocking him off balance with the right arm across the head, and establishes top position. And from there, JDM just simply forearm frames to create separation, allowing himself to rotate to his side, knee shielding on Islam, creating more separation, so then he could focus on gripping 2 hands on Islam's right arm. Islam counters that by pulling his arm away, breaking one of the grips, but look at all of the space that he opened up for JDM to start maneuvering in. He rises up to a knee, tries to escape, but Islam's on top of him. He gets a body lock and tries to control the position, but JDM uses that momentum by rolling to his back and kicking up Islam from his knee shield, elevating him, trying to reverse the position. But this is where Islam displays his grip strength. He's locking hands and never once did it break. The guy's all the way flipped to the other side, kicks off the ground and tries to recenter himself. JDM blocks him as Islam is upside down, but still correctly angles himself and gets control around the back. JDM's posturing and Islam's just hanging on him, dude, putting all the weight on top of him while still not losing his grip whatsoever. So JDM resorts to crawling to the fence, and that opened himself up for Islam to get the hooks in, secures the back take, and JDM had to rotate around to get his back to the mat so he can recapture the half guard position, essentially ending up where they began. And then we go to this other takedown. It was necessarily affected by a calf kick, so the damage forces JDM to switch into the opposite stance, and with his weak leg behind him, it became very difficult for him to defend that double leg takedown. But first, Islam distracts JDM with another fake jab, causes him to cover up, opening up the hips. This was perfect technique by Islam Makhachev, landing the takedown, getting top position, as usual. And then on another takedown, he just shoots it from the open without a feint, and JDM covers up again, takedown blast through, secures the top position, and he quickly wraps around the legs. But the takedowns were not only aggressive, he also used them as a counter. Islam's on the back foot as JDM gets desperate for the knockout. It's in the 5th round, he needs to make something work for him. So he switches from orthodox to southpaw by throwing a half-committed right hook, he doesn't fully throw it, into an angular left straight. Islam ducks under the punch and counters with a double leg takedown as JDM tries to intercept him with a right uppercut, but the takedown was too easy, and JDM tries his hardest to get up again. So he starts posturing, posting on his left elbow, And Islam just simply breaks down that elbow every single time by getting wrist control, pulling it inward, and pushing his weight forward on top of him. JDM tries it again. Islam breaks it down once more. JDM is persistent. He tries it again, only for Islam to get wrist control with 2 hands, breaking it down again. But then JDM pulls off a very slick move here. He's on his side and starts to rotate belly down, but reaches for wrist control, turns that into a Kimura, so he's attacking Islam so he can reposition himself. From the Kimura, he rests his back to the mat, letting go of the grip, and establishes the full guard position by pushing away at Islam's hip. So the grappling and takedown sequences were dominant, but the leg kicks inflicted the most damage of the entire fight, debilitating Jack Della Maddalena, ultimately making the takedowns even easier to get. His damaged leg behind him would collapse. And not only that, the open stance welcomed some body kicks and head kicks from Islam. Essentially, kicking, takedowns, and jab feints were all that Islam needed to win this fight. And of course, to out-scramble JDM, showing that there are levels to this. And ultimately, just an amazing win from Islam Makhachev. Complete dominance. This was not competitive at all, both in the striking and in the grappling. JDM had one moment in the clinch where he was just swinging punches, landing some big body shots, but that was the amount of his offensive success. Whereas defensively, he was successful in defending those submissions. So after this, Islam's got to fight Michael Morales. Like, that's the fight to make. And it's honestly a very interesting fight and could prove to be difficult due to Morales' size advantage. He's much bigger than Islam, and we'll see how he handles that. I know there's been talks about Usman fighting for the belt, and Usman's a legend, but he is undeserving of a title shot, especially after all the welterweight fights that resulted on this card. There is no way you give him a title shot over Michael Morales. That is quite crazy. He won a decision against Buckley, whereas Morales TKO'd Brady in the first round. There is no comparison. And the guy's 19-0. That's the next title challenger, and Islam's got his work cut out for that one. And as for JDM, I would like to see him fight Kamaru Usman or even Carlos Prates. Either fight would suffice, and I hope you guys enjoy the breakdown. Make sure to give it a like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video.